Hello, all, and welcome. 5 Minute University is back with a new podcast series on the future of on the job training. In this series, we'll explore the latest trends, challenges, and strategies in talent development. I'm your host, Dario Minaya, and in today's episode, we're diving into a hot topic that's reshaping the talent development landscape on the job training. We'll explore why it's gaining traction, how it benefits both employees and organizations, and strategies for implementing it effectively. Stay tuned to learn more. All right, we're going to jump in and get started. I'm actually going to be turning this over to two of our guests today who are going to be leading this podcast, Guido and Susan Minaya.
Hello, Susan.
Hey.
Well, let's start with the basics of on-the-job training, or OJT. I mean, it's been around for decades, but it's making a significant comeback. Why do you think that is, Susan?
Well, that's a great question, Guido. On-the-job training is practical, first and foremost. It's immediate, and it's also cost effective. So in today's fast-paced work environments, employees really need to learn as they go. And rather than spending days or hours in a formal classroom setting, OJT really fills that gap by allowing employees to acquire new skills while still staying productive on the job.
Absolutely. According to the 2024 ATD State of the Industry report, coaching, mentoring, and job aids are the most common forms of on-the-job training being used. And why do you think these methods are so popular?
Well, first off, they're hands-on and they're directly relevant to the work that the employees are doing. So the stickiness factor there for learning something is super high. Coaching and mentoring, for example, offers very personalized guidance for individuals, which is more impactful for them than generic training sessions might be, right? Because it's all about them. And then job aids provide quick references for employees that they can use on the spot, which is really important in the flow of work. Think of things like contact centers or things like that, where I need information on how to do a specific task or answer a specific question. I'm able, if a company has good knowledge management systems, to be able to just get in there and go get the answer to that question on the fly. So it's really amazing. So it's really about making learning accessible and applicable to the person and the job that they're doing. So Guido, you've been doing quite a bit of research on AI as part of the Minaya Learning AI Center of Excellence. What are you seeing here that impacts the resurgence of on-the-job training?
Yes, well, AI is significantly shaping the resurgence of on-the-job training by making it more efficient, personalized, and data-driven. So as OJT gains traction in the corporate training space, or regains traction in the corporate training space, AI-driven technologies are enhancing the way employees learn, apply skills in real time, and receive feedback.
Oh, that's really interesting. So can you share some examples?
Yes, well, what comes to mind is real-time AI coaching and assistance. So AI-powered virtual coaches or mentors can provide real-time guidance during OJT. Employees can actually access AI chatbots or voice assistants to receive instant answers to job-related questions. And this reduces dependency on supervisors, as well as speeding up problem solving. An example is like a knowledge assistant like Copilot from Microsoft, or even IBM's Watson, which helps employees troubleshoot complex issues while they're working.
Yeah, so that's a lot like the call centers using the knowledge management system. So getting the answers they need in the moment that they need them. That's cool.
Exactly. And then when you think about the personalized learning paths that AI can assist with, so AI can analyze an employee's performance, recommend customized OJT experiences based on the individual skill gaps, the learner's pace of learning, and the job requirements. So that's another exciting development with AI.
That sounds like it could actually be its own podcast series.
Let's shift gears and talk about two other forms of on-the-job training that are gaining popularity: stretch assignments and job shadowing. So Susan, can you explain a little bit about what those are?
Sure, Guido. Well, stretch assignments involve getting employees tasks or projects that are slightly outside their current skill set or comfort zone. So this gives them an opportunity to kind of push them to learn and grow while still contributing to the organization's goals. Job shadowing, on the other hand, allows employees to observe and learn from colleagues who are experts in specific areas. So one is about doing the work, the other one is about observing the work.
Well, those sound like great opportunities for growth. Do you have any examples of how organizations are implementing those methods?
Sure, definitely. So, one example is a company I work with that required junior employees with senior leaders for job shadowing. This not only helped the junior employees develop new skills, but also fostered a sense of mentorship and connection within the organization, which is really powerful as well for developing an employee. And so, as for stretch assignments, organizations often use them in leadership development programs, giving emerging leaders the chance to manage projects or teams. So, an example of this is in the Women in Leadership curriculum that we have. I always encourage the leaders that are in that program to actually leverage the time that they're in the formal educational classes for a half a day to do exactly, what would be stretch assignments. So they're basically giving their employees an opportunity to sit in for them in meetings, be able to get exposure and experience to the world of their leader, which they usually don't get an opportunity for.
Wow, that's such a great point, and it's all about creating a culture where learning and growth are encouraged.
Yep.
Well, what if we talk about the benefits of on-the-job training for a moment? So, Susan, how do you see this, and how is it impacting organization?
On the job training has a direct impact on productivity and employee engagement. First off, productivity because employees are on the job, right? They're still doing the work and they're still being productive. So the work doesn't get interrupted because they have to leave and go to training class. So employees feel more confident and capable when they're learning in real time. It also helps organizations address skill gaps quickly without really disrupting their operations.
That's such an important point, especially in today's rapidly changing work environment. Are there specific industries where OJT is particularly effective?
It's effective across really all industries, but it's especially valuable in tech roles, healthcare, manufacturing. In these sectors, the pace of innovation is so fast that employees need to constantly update their skills to stay relevant. And there's a lot of organizations like manufacturing that does installations where it's kind of like an apprenticeship model for people to learn how to do the job. So that falls into the same category.
Right. And from an AI perspective, what's interesting is that as someone's going through, let's say, a manufacturing process, AI can detect what skills are already effective for that employee and just hone in on those skills that need development.
Mhm.
So that's interesting to see that correlation. And it's not just about technical skills though, right? So what about soft skills like communications and teamwork? How can those be developed through on the job training?
Well, I think that comes through feedback, right, from the person that's overseeing them or in the on the job training experience, right? So I think this is where it's really important to have structures around things like OJT that oftentimes you can't just say, oh, you're going to train them on the job. So for consistency for the organization, you really want a framework that leaders and other employees in the organization will use when they're doing on the job training with employees. And this would include a feedback mechanism on them about not just the skill of the technical skill, but also the soft skills. So, like if I'm answering the phone and doing all the things in a call center environment, for example, but how are my communication skills? Like, how did I handle that? So, these would be competencies that you'd align with the job itself, and then you decide what's really important for this person in this role and make sure that that's a line item on their observation form that they get from the people that's doing the OJT with them.
Great. Well, that lines up well with our next focus area of challenges and tips on implementation. So let's wrap up with some practical advice. What challenges do organizations face when implementing on-the-job training? And from your experience, how could they overcome them?
Well, I think one of the things we talked about is that it's variable. So if you have people that aren't trained facilitators or have not really been taught how to mentor or coach someone, you could have a lot of variability in the experience for the employee. So that going back to what I talked about, having that framework, it's really ensuring that there's a consistency for the OJT, regardless of where it's taking place, because all managers and mentors are not naturally good at it, right? And sometimes I've seen some when I've observed people in kind of the working environment, and that makes me kind of cringe because of just the way they interact and language together, but yet it's not really lining up with the organizational culture and the way they would want them to show up. So I think organizations really can address this by providing training for the people that are the mentors and coaches in the on-the-job training, and really create the very clear guidelines for the OJT programs.
Right. And another challenge I've heard about is how can we better balance training with productivity? And how do you ensure employees are learning without sacrificing their work?
Well, that's a great point. And there again, it's all about integration, right? So OJT should really be seamlessly woven into the employee's daily tasks. For example, using tools like job aids or the learning management systems can make training less intrusive. But I think it's really just having the mechanism to say where are your baselines. So this goes back to metrics, right? So how are we really looking to see how effective is the on-the-job training in our organization? And it's like, what are we expecting them when they're kind of coming into a role? And then as they begin to ramp up and get more proficient, what are you measuring to be able to tell you how fast that's happening or how slow that's happening? So, it always goes back to metrics, Guido.
Well, those are all such great tips. It's clear that while on-the-job training has some challenges, the benefits far outweigh them when it's done right. Well, it was fun learning and talking to you about this, and my goodness, I think we're ready to wrap up, Dario.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Susan, thanks so much for sharing your insights. Guido, thank you very much for helping to facilitate.
Always a pleasure, Dario and Guido. And, thanks to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you found this discussion valuable.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Susan and Guido, for sharing your insights on trends in on-the-job training. There's a lot to pay attention to here, and I'm excited for the other episodes we have coming up. Speaking of which, in our next episode, we'll dive into AI and learning technology transformations. Don't forget to subscribe to 5 Minute University Podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, leave us a review and share it with your network. Until next time.